So in the good old days, I used to prepare my videos, plan things to talk about, not necessarily script the whole thing, but have a set of positions ready to talk about, have some idea of what I was going to say, and go from there. And in recent days, since Triple Triad Advance has come back, I've done it much more off the cuff, either talking as I play or not feeling quite the need to prepare stuff in the same way. Which is to say, this video is, I'm not quite sure where it's going to go, but I know the general gist, at least, of what I'd like to talk about. And what I'd like to do is try and sell you on a certain type of playing, a certain specific way of handling first turn. Now, I should say in advance, I don't think this method is great. In fact, I don't think it's good. But I do think it's interesting, and I do want to make a case for why you could or should do it. But I should say in advance, just full transparency here. I think in open random games on most rule sets, 5 starters are quite weak. In hand games, you can have enough synergies built together, enough coverage of squares, that those 5 starters can work really well there. Some of my best hands were 5 starters. I really like 5 starters. I think 5 starters are can be top tier on most rule sets, can be some of the best hands available. However, I do not think this is true in randoms. I think the synergies just aren't there to have the proper setups and the proper control of squares. However, there's something really interesting that happens with 5 starters. So if your goal in Triple Triad, and this would be a really weird goal to have, but if your goal was to have the same basic setup after 3 moves every single game you played. So like you get really good at playing this one setup. So maybe you just really wish you could get the 3 corners setup every game. You really feel you understand how games develop from here. But the problem with the 3 corners setup is as soon as you play in one of the corners, if they don't go in one of the other corners, if they go here, you can get your 3 corners. But if they go in any of the sides or the center, you immediately can never get your preferred 3 corners setup. The same thing is true if you for instance really like the knight formation. Let's start with a corner. The knight formation, where each card is a knight's move away, or 2 of the cards are a knight's move away. But of course, if your opponent goes in this corner, you can get it. If they go in a side, you can get it. But if they go in the far corner, you cannot get it. And if they go in the center, you cannot get it. So if you go through all the things, there is in fact only one way to force, or sort of 2 ways, but basically one way to force the same setup after 3 moves. Now, it doesn't matter if it's rotated, right? I'm counting this is a 3 corners, and this is also a 3 corners, right? It doesn't have to be the exact same squares. There's only one way to get it. And the problem is anything that requires 2 of something and 1 of something else, if they play in the third type, you can't get it. So if you're going for 2 corners and a side, anytime they play in the center, it's ruined. If you're going for 2 corners and a center, anytime they play in a side, it's ruined. So the only way we can do this is with exactly a corner, a center, and a side. The problem is, if you start in a corner, they can go in a corner, and we now can't get a corner, a center, and a side. If we start in a side, they can go in another side, and again, we can't achieve that. So the only way to do it is to go in the center. Because now, if they go in a corner, we can go in a side, and if they go in a side, we can go in a corner, and either way, we're going to get this, what I call the J setup. Because this looks kind of like a J, and you can rotate it or flip it, but we do what letter it looks like in Triple Triad land. Note you can do it 2 different ways. We can get the J, or we can get what I'm going to call the center attack, where we immediately attack the card they played. And whichever way they do it, we can get this center attack setup. So the core idea of this video is we're going to talk about positions where we start in 5, they go in a corner or a side, it doesn't matter which, and we immediately attack their card. And I'm going to show a kind of example game, a game I just played the other day that I thought was really interesting, where we get this setup. We actually get it out of a different move order, so it doesn't really count. But I wanted to just talk about, I thought this game really showed the strengths of what you can achieve doing this. And I did it from a different move order, but if you play it with the center starter, you can guarantee this kind of game every single game you play. And so I'm going to kind of give things to look for and reasons why it can be strong or forcing. I should also say, I think this is not a very popular strategy, but there is one player currently doing it in quite a decent number of their games. I think Scythe has been playing ideas like this quite a bit. and honestly not, I think, very well. He is not in top form yet, but I do, and he's also often playing well at work. But I do think it is an interesting way of playing, and I want to sort of celebrate it and look at some ideas. So the game today, I did not start in the center. I started with the corner, and my opponent responded in the center, setting up 3756 for 4, and setting up, 3747 already has 8. But we do have this start, right? We do have a card's in 5 and a card is in a square other than 5 after 2 moves. So we can force the kind of center attack position. And we can see why it might be strong. He has one way to capture from both. And one of those ways we have pretty well covered. You know, I'm just wasting a move for me. If he ever does this, I can combo back, right? I have this really well covered with my 6174. So he does not have a threat in 8. Or at least not a threat he wants to play immediately. Of course, if 9 somehow got blocked, then he'd have a great card for 8. Potentially weak to combos from 5, but in general a great card for 8 if 9 is blocked. But as long as 9 is left open, he does not have a big threat in 8. So by going in 4, where he does have a pretty good threat, you know, he has a way of locking it in where I certainly can't combo back. By blocking 4, I say you can't go in 8. And we can immediately create problems. And I thought this was a really good move. If he goes in 8, I combo back, and this position, I did check to make sure he wouldn't have a combo in 6 here at the end. He doesn't. I think I did calculate further than this, but I don't really have to. This position is so incredibly advantageous, and so obviously so. I'm basically up 3 cards on the bottom, that it's just so unlikely for anything to go wrong here. I guess you do have to check for setups in 3. Like a move like this might be tricky to meet because they threaten something dangerous in 2. But you're also up so much you can just block here and you're going to win 6-4. When you're up this much, unless they have some huge combo setup, it's really hard for it to not work. So we've got 8 covered. Where's the other natural square they're going to go in? Some might say like 6 is a square, they have a capture there, or 2. But these squares fundamentally give up secured cards, right? Nothing they play in 6 is going to be safe, and if they capture 5, that's not safe either. These are not cards where we care all that much about the captures. We sort of have 7 for us now, right? They can't really address 7. They also, potentially, if they don't take 4 now, we threaten to block in 4. So that's another square we might have forever. If they play somewhere like 6, they're just conceding that we have multiple cards they can't touch, and they have no cards we can't touch. So I think moves like 4 or 2 are just not moves we should fundamentally be worried about. And when we're looking to kind of play the center attack, we should be considering 1 and 8. Those are the 2 squares we care about. If they happen to have something somewhere else, congrats to them. They found a really good move, or they lost. More likely they just lost, but occasionally they found a really good move. But we really just have to check 1 and 8. So one of the reasons I like playing this way is it is forcing. I know they only have 2 potential moves, and in this case, I can immediately rule out this one. So the only thing I'm afraid of is 1. Now, they only have 1 capture in 1, which is why I specifically chose the 5763 for 4. And I can calculate out this very linear line. I know as long as I don't use this card, they can't go in 8. So if I just capture them, now if I capture this way, they have the plus wall, so I don't want it that way. I want to capture this way. And I can see this position, and I knew this position was winning. Because I only had to check 2 moves. If they go here, I combo them and I'm up too much. If they do it this way, I guess I have to check 3 moves. I also combo them, this time with the plus wall instead of the plus, and I'm up too much. And if they go this way, this was the one line that was a little harder to spot, but it's the exact same move, and their problem is their only capture, I now have a plus at the end. So when I made my move in 4, because the path is so direct, because I know that only moves in 1 and 8 matter, because I could immediately eliminate 8 as an option, I knew they were forced to go 1. I knew I could take that in a non-comboable way, and then I could just start calculating this position. I knew if they don't go 3, they're probably in trouble. because they don't have a capture they want in 8. 3 and 8 are likely to be the best squares here, so we're likely to just do a circle of captures, right? When I make this move in 4, the game is likely to then follow 1, 2, 3, 6, 8, 9, but basically just this circular wheel of spinning around doing all the moves in order, and so it's really easy to calculate deeply, right? Normally you can't on move 3 calculate correctly to the end of the game, but here it was pretty easy to do and pretty easy to realize this was very, very likely to be winning. And in fact, it is winning. And that the position after this is also very likely to be winning because I can combo that. So I saw they had one good way of capturing, they had one bad way of capturing, I block their good way of capturing, and then I check the wheel to see if it works when I calculate it out. And it wasn't a very hard move to make, and it worked really well. My opponent in this game was Violva, and he actually found an incredible move here to save the game. This in 8 is losing, this in 1 is losing. He found this here, which I think is a very hard move to play. It is safe, but it concedes so many cards and squares. I thought it was a great move, and he ended up getting the tie, and, you know, kudos to him. I just thought it was awesome play. I thought it was a very impressive move. I think I ended up playing this way, which was a little weird, but I thought all moves led to a tie, and this move seemed the kind of most interesting way there. Or lots of moves led to a tie. But great move by him in 8, and managed to find a way to stabilize. But you can see how dangerous this center attack can be when we have one of the ways to address our starter covered. And I want to also note, let's pretend we couldn't combo it back. This position, even if we flipped 8 but didn't also flip 7, could be really good for us. Because even if 7 is blue, our card in 9 is safe. Our card in 8 is probably locked in, assuming they don't have combos on the card in 5. So sometimes what we're doing with this move is we're giving up the card in 7, but we know when they recapture, we are getting both the cards in 8 and 9 in return. And so even if we don't get the card in 7, we can often be pressing for a win. So often it's, what are their recaptures? Do they have a recapture where I could take that with a high number sticking out? If so, I'm just going to immediately go after their move. In this case, you know, my card is in 7, not 5, but we're presuming their card's the corner card. I can immediately go after it and force future safety for me, either because when they go here, I lock in both 8 and 9, you know, both this card and this card, even if I don't have this one, or when they go here, I kind of have two ways to potentially get safety. Maybe I have safety in 2. In this case, I don't. Maybe I have safety in 8, which would lock in the card in 7. Either way, I can potentially I give up safety here to get multiple safety further on. Here, I didn't even have safety on the follow-up, and it's still winning because I checked the captures and I have combos against all of them. So I thought that was a neat game and a good example of kind of how this ideally works. And now I'm going to get into some games I haven't actually looked at, so I don't know if these will be good examples. But here is a game Scythe played that he won in one of the chat tournaments. I'm going to put in the cards. Please bear with me. Where he played this idea. I'm using him as an example because I think he is the main current user of this kind of plan. I don't know how intentionally he does it, but I suspect pretty intentionally. And we're going to look at how he handles it and maybe think, could we do it better? Does it make sense how he's doing it? What's his version achieving? So I have successfully put in the cards. Sweet. So he starts in 5. He's going to be the red hand. Now, if we were thinking of which card to put in 5, if we were looking at this kind of thing, what we're really looking to do, right, is we stick something in 5, they go in some corner, and we potentially can play out safely next to it. And then potentially when they play to the other side of it, you know, say the 6 was safe, when they go to the other side, potentially take that with safety out too. Here, we don't really have that, but we should look to keep cards that have the potential to be safe against their hand. So, what's their highest number right? It's an 8. We have nothing that is not vulnerable to an 8. What's the highest number left? They have a 7. We have 7s and 8s to the right. So this card potentially could be safe going right. and this card potentially could be safe going right. In fact, they're both looking at their hand, very likely to be. So these are two cards we might want to hold on to because they have a chance to build out safety. What about up? They have a 7 going up. We have a 7 going down. So this card we really don't want to throw away, though we might think this card actually is really dominated by this card. It's going to be easy for them to take our 7s. What about them going down? They have an 8. We have nothing higher up. So actually, this looks to me like a hand where this is going to be really hard to do because it's going to be really hard for us to build out safety. The one cards I wouldn't be tempted to use is I would kind of want to keep hold of these two because they seem the two with the best chance, and I'd probably get rid of one of my more redundant cards. Scythe goes a very different direction. He plays 5-8, 3-6, and 5, which is a card I would be tempted to hold on to. His opponent, Sachi, goes in 4. And now, though, we see why. First of all, the center attack, we're going to go in either 1 or 7 if we're following through on this. We have no captures from 7. Do we need to capture? I think the answer is we do. It is much better if we capture. And the reason for that is capturing immediately puts pressure on them to do something in response. And so I think Scythe makes a pretty good move here by going for this center attack in 1, and we can see this all coming together. We spotted they have no way to capture our 7 or 8 going to the right. You know, they should not have played on the left side of the board. It gave us free safety. And they have a lot of difficulty recapturing their card. If they do it this way, we have a combo. 2 different ways, actually. If they do it this way, we have a combo. And both of these seem incredibly dangerous for them to allow. They don't have a capture in 2. They don't have a move in 7. If out of this center attack, they don't have moves in either 2 or in 7, this is going to be an incredibly hard position for them to defend. Again, the best defense is probably something like blocking 2 with safety, just because this is the only square where they actually can achieve safety, and at least they get something. But then it's very obvious that we should have a big advantage. We have one card locked in, we have another card pretty close to locked in, and we have the ability to determine the direction of the game by being on move. This is a very big advantage. It might not be enough to win, but against most other moves, it's pretty clearly going to be a win. In the game, Sachi tried to complicate with 6-1, 6-7, and Scythe just blocked 2 and won pretty easily. And I think, yeah, it looks like a nice example of this center attack strategy, where if you can spot safety while taking their card, it is very likely to be good. Here it's even better because we know we have safety, so they don't have the capture in 2, but here we also have both captures from 7 covered, and so this is very likely, if not to be winning, then to be a way to put tremendous pressure on the opponent. So let's put in a different game. So I have an AI somewhat based on doing this strategy, and they played this way in a game against Chickenade that we will now look at. Once I input the cards, which I'm typing in now. Sorry for the downtime. So I'm not saying this is some amazing strategy and it should be done every game, but I'm saying if you did do it every game, you would achieve the same setup after 3 moves in every game you played. Presumably, you would get some comfort and some skill at handling this specific position type. And I could see for certain players it being a really useful weapon. And again, I have tons of respect for Scythe, and I think he does this pretty regularly. And I also do think he's not playing very well right now, and that his games in it, that game was really nice, but most of the games haven't worked nearly as well. But I also, if someone that good is playing lines like this, there's definitely reason to do it. So this game they started in 5. Again, if we look at our hand and we think about where there's potential safety, their highest number down, we're going to be the red cards again, is a 5. So we have these 2 6s up. We probably don't need both, so it makes some sense to use one. This makes sense as the one to use, but holding on to one of them can be valuable. Their highest number to the right is a 7. We have a 6 left, but this means this might be a less useful card because it doesn't play as well against their hand. Their highest number going up is a 5. We have a 7 down. So this card potentially is going to grab a safety later. And their highest number to the left is a 6. We have nothing to beat that. So that's the one direction. I guess left and right, we probably won't be able to build out safety, but up and down, we are likely to have a chance. So the AI started in 5, and Chickeny played in 8. Very smart move. That card is completely safe to us. We cannot capture that card in any way, and thus we might think the center attack is out because we can't actually take their card. But even when we can't, we're still getting the same basic formation. And also, if they're going to grab safety so early, we're going to need something in response. And having that be safety of our own is a pretty valuable thing to get back. Now, the only safety we can have is going up. So we're going to be seeing the 6-4-2-2 in either 7 or 9. Both of those squares look safe to me. The AI played in 9. And now we can again see sort of why there's some reasoning to this move. Chickeny is no safety in 7, so we each have a safe card, but Chickeny has to find a move without safety here. And that can be a tricky thing to do. Chickeny ended up playing 2, 3, 1, 6, and 6, which I think was a good move. The card in 5 is not trivial for us to recapture in a lot of lines, and the game ended up trickling out into a tie. But again, here we have options. We could play a Q, we could play in 3. Here, I think 3 is a tough square to play in because... No, maybe 3 is fine. Was plus wall on? Plus wall might not have been on in this rule set. I'm not sure. But anyways, again, you can see how we have the secure card, right? We have this sort of positional advantage out of this opening. Do I have any other games I thought were interesting in this line? Or with this type of play? The problem is all the people doing center starters right now are losing with them. One of the reasons I'm making this video is to try to get people to do center starters maybe a little better thought out. Because center starters are putting up just terrible win rates right now. Let's do another game of Sipes. This is not one I've looked at, but hopefully it will make sense. He is the hero of playing this way, so let's go with him. One strength of doing this I haven't mentioned is it kind of forces the games to be on the terms of what you just did, right? When you play like a J or something vague, right? If we see something like this, they have so many options of squares to potentially play in that are plausible. Well, when we do the immediate capture, we immediately make the game about the squares 2 and 7. So I tend to be a player who calculates very well, but likes to calculate narrowly. I'd like to calculate 1 or 2 lines very deeply. And this is a way of playing that really lets me do that. If you don't like calculating at all, this is probably not the way to play for you. Though you can do it somewhat on heuristics. You know, you can look for it when there's safety. So how did this game actually start? So which card, if we're going to drop a card in 5, which card would we do? Well, we have to match up with the opponent's hand. We have this 8 going down. They have no way to overpower it, but they do have 2 cards that plus wall it. Their second card plus walls it one way, their first the other. So that's actually not very likely to be all that secure. This card, not likely either, the 7-4-6-4. Okay, so probably not going down. How about going up? Do we have hope going up? Nope, they've got 8s. How about left and right? We've got a 7. That 4-7-4-7 is trouble. And how about going to the left? We have a 6. No, that's dominated too. So this is pretty unlikely to be a great strategy here, but let's see how it works out, because it is very hard for our hand to find safety. And Scythe went here. Well, we do notice they actually only have 1 way to take from 3. So often, even without a huge number facing out, they might not have... they have 2 ways to take. They might not have that many ways to approach it. And potentially this one does surrender safety to us. This one, however, does not, and we can't combo it. So that's probably a little worrisome because they potentially grab more cards than we do. They can also combo back 2 different ways. What happened in the game? So they went in 3 in the game. 2 is probably pretty strong. So this card, I guess our point is we have the big combo. This card, I guess they used up all their left power. So actually, we can grab some safety. And here, they might have to be a little careful to tie, but I don't think we're going to lose this one. Against this, this looks promising, but I guess it doesn't work because they just combo back in 8. And it's probably losing for us. So that one, that move actually probably beats us here. This is an example of it not working so good. It's not always going to work. Yeah, this does seem a dangerous version of it to me, right? Like, one thing that really makes it good, maybe let's just put in, like, some fake hands. Or just some totally unconnected, random. Let's grab a random game of, let's take one of mine. Make it a level 10 game. Sorry, not seeing many level 10 games I've played of recent. Weird. Okay. And sort of theory craft how we do it here and see if it looks convincing. Alright, so we're the red side, and we're looking to drop a card in 5. Our best up is an A. Do they have A's well controlled? Only if the wall is in effect from above. Okay. Down, we have an A. That A is pretty good, again, has a potential wall problem. To the right, we have an A. That looks pretty good. And to the left, we have absolutely nothing. So one of the weaknesses of center starters is they don't direct the game at all, and if you have a directional weakness, that is potentially quite exploitable. I would say in general, so we probably want to keep one of our A's to the right, but that means we can use the other. We'd like to keep our A down and our A up, or one of our A's up. So basically this is the only card we've ruled out using as our starter. I'd probably like to keep this because potentially the 6 part at least can capture up to at least 2, but maybe 3 of their cards. In the side we have directional weakness. So let's chuck one of the other ones. So this, or this. Let's do this one. And let's say they play a kind of normal corner move. Something which they have covered both ways, and maybe we don't have covered. Let's say they play this, trying to play against our left weakness. I guess that gives us this here, so it doesn't play that well against it. All right, let's look a little more. Just trying to find something that that seems like a normal move someone might make. Okay, we'll stick with what we found. So this does set us up both ways. I mean, we do have 2 ways to capture this. We do have a bunch of combos off it. Yeah, no, so I shouldn't do this one. Trying to think what's a normie move. Maybe something like this. We don't have any capture from 8, right? This is kind of uncomfortable. So can we make any of our ideas work? We know we don't have safety in 2. And also, if we go... Oh, sorry, safety in 4, right? Because we know they can capture 10s facing down. And also, when they recapture, we don't necessarily have a capture in... Maybe we do. No, we don't necessarily have a capture in 9. So if we're going to attack, we want to go in 8 with our center attack. That's the square we potentially have some safety. So let's say we try to build out. So we've given ourselves safety, facing towards 9. And they don't have safety in 4. right? So we've sort of forced this to be a game immediately about safety. And actually, this position looks really bad for them. Like, we didn't even have to take. I do prefer it when we take, but we didn't have to take here. I'm not sure what they do, or what the kind of normal move is here. They really don't want to have a 9 or 7 facing up from 4. Their 2 there is pretty awkward. Guess maybe something like this is possible, with the point that if we take with Cypher, they combo back. But we can just keep attacking things, right? Maybe not that way. We're also probably really good in the T, right? If we go into a T, we have the secured card. We have some really good up-down sweepers. You know, this guy's great up and down. So maybe this guy? I think I want to keep Cypher. This is the plus wall, the same wall against the 7, but this just takes more things. So maybe something like this. I don't know if blue can hold this. This looks very likely to be winning. I'm gonna see what the AI says. All right, so so this position's just a win from here, and you know, very powerful. This was not planned at all. This was just putting some cards in a game which went very differently than this. I switched which hand was on first turn. The starter wasn't in 5 here. But you can see this move after this looks really hard to defend. So let's put in a side move now. Now their hand has a lot more side-to-side cards than up-down cards. So let's drop... I mean, this is a kind of not very good move. I should probably give them a better move. Their hand's not very good. All right, let's just making a move. Let's put on the left side of the board. Left is our weakness, so they can try to play against our weakness. Though actually here, that I guess does fit into what we do, because we are trying to head to the right. So how would we do our center attack? We have safety in 1. We do not have safety in 7, so we'd probably start in 1. This card's our obvious move. Now, if they retake this way, we combo them. So, again, already unpleasant. Really easy for them to land in an unpleasant situation. And the easy thing from our perspective is we only have to check if 2 and 8 are good. And here we are safe, so we know 2 isn't good. And looking at 7, sorry, 2 or 7 are good. Looking at 7, what are they going to do in 7? You know, this guy is also comboed immediately. This guy isn't. That guy's safe. Okay, so they do have 1 move. I would guess this is their best move. And now we have a bunch of ways to play it. The T is probably pretty bad this time because we have no leftward power. So I'm very skeptical of the T. Important to note, we do have potential plus wall in 6. So, you know, something like this could be totally reasonable, right? If they take it, we're comboing back pretty hard. I don't know. Probably leads to a tie. Yeah, I don't know. This one I doubt is winning, or we can put much pressure. But you can see the idea. We have this very forcing way of approaching the game. We chuck a card in 5, specifically a card that either is unlikely to offer safety against their hand or offers redundant safety. In this hand, we had 2 cards that had an A to the right, so we used one of them. And then wherever they play on the board, we play next to it, looking either for safety or to take their thing and build out from there. So one example I didn't look at, say they go somewhere like here. Let's do it in a way I can take just to make my example. We take it, and they take back. Did I do an example where they can't take back? Yeah, that was not a good move. We take it, and they take they take back. Say this way. This way is dumb, but, it'll make my point. They take back this way. This way will make my point, hopefully. No, it won't. I didn't give myself safety here. So my point was going to be, and it doesn't work with exactly these cards, so sue me, but like if we could capture that card with this, or like if we could play this and be safe, right? I don't care about the combo right now. Now here they can take us, so this doesn't apply to this exact position. But if we could take this card and be safe, then we've also locked in 2 cards. So we sort of have these multiple plans of, if they go in 3 here, sometimes we go 8, sometimes we go 6, sometimes we go 4. But usually if they go 3, we're just checking, do we have a good move in 6, right? If we're looking to play 2, we're checking, can we meet 3 and can we meet 6? And usually the way we're going to meet either one is by playing next to it, right? If they go 3, we're usually going here and trying to lock in cards. Now here, of course, it doesn't, given their exact hand, but you get my point. And if they go here, we're usually looking to play here and lock in these 2, though occasionally we'll settle for playing here and locking in the 2 at the top. And I don't know, this felt like a bit of a discombobulated video, but I wanted to say, I think the center attack is an interesting way to play. I think center starters basically do not control the direction enough in the game. And in closed, where the opponent does not know your hand, I do not think this is a major concession. It gives them control of the direction, and they will do the thing that fits their hand best, but they will not do the thing that fits your hand worst. They'll only do that, some small person, some like a quarter of the time will they play in the area you didn't want them to, and the other 3 quarters they'll play in areas you were fine with. In open, they're going to often play in the squares you don't want, and you give up too much directional control over the game. However, I think this is an interesting way of trying to deal with that. And especially if your opponent is of the type of, you have a directional weakness. I'm going to exploit you being bad to the left. You go, yes, of course I'm bad to the left, but I'm really good to the right. And so I'm going to start setting up safety facing to the right with moves like this. And in fact here, they're probably going to have to do some work to tie this game. And we're likely to have an easy road, even though we have this huge leftward weakness. And I think it's interesting that actually in this example, where I put this card here and we played here, this was the first one I looked at, right? I think this might just be a win for red. And if so, that's pretty remarkable, because we did a kind of weird center starter. They played a corner starter that we could not even take from one side, and they might just be losing off it. That's pretty impressive, and I think speaks to this can be a way to really attack them immediately, and to also know, and I really think this is useful and important to know, there's only 2 moves that matter here. If they happen to find a great move somewhere else, good for them, but the moves that matter are 4 and 9, and if we have good replies to 4 and 9, we're going to have a good game. We're not going to lose. We're going to have a chance to win. If we don't have good replies to those moves, then we can't play this way. This is a bad way of playing. But here, they have no good move for 4. They have no good move for 9. I think they're dead. I think this is just busted. So, trying to advertise the center attack here. Again, I don't really believe in it, but I do think it's interesting. I'd love to get more data of people playing center starters, and I think it can apply some surprise pressure on people that expect the J or expect other kinds of setups.